With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our presenter, Renee Hodgins. Renee, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to begin by thanking everyone for their time and for joining us today. A big thank you to Rick and his team at Manufacturing Works for inviting us to share information with you today. Our discussion is really largely based on our experiences as a staffing consulting firm. What we've learned over the past few months, both from our client partners as well as our associates across the country and here in Northeast Ohio, most importantly. Certainly there are commonalities, and while this information varies from state to state, there are without a doubt common themes in the information to be gleaned from the challenges that companies have faced and how organizations are continuing to adapt by putting best practices in place. So with that said, again, we will start our presentation. So thank you, Ann. So I'd like to begin obviously by introducing the scope of our experience and who we are. Horizons HRS was founded in 1991 in Mason, Ohio. We are headquartered here in Cleveland. We serve as a staffing partner for over 500 clients in 24 different states. Of those clients, we serve 40 industries and 250 different job titles. We specialize both on and off-site as human resource support, specifically specializing in staffing, retention, compliance, safety, and payroll as well. Again, I'd like to stress that our experiences have come from our exposure to various situations, both here in Northeast Ohio as well as nationally. The information that we've gathered has come to us organically through employee surveys as well as from our client partners. I'd like to stress that the previous information shared in the last webinar that was legal information as it pertains to COVID-19 was extremely helpful. This presentation is not a repeat of that information, but rather the best practices based on what our clients are doing to remain successful in today's marketplace. And next slide. So to introduce our program contents, and again, these are all based on common themes that are shared across the country. Not all these things have happened in one place or occurred at a single source, certainly, but they're really and truthfully a compilation of challenges and measures put in place that have absolutely been necessary for manufacturing organizations to remain both operational and profitable in what is undoubtedly an uncertain time. We'll address challenges and the best practices as they relate to hiring, safety, employee retention, COVID-19 education, and company safeguarding. As Rick mentioned at the previously, we'll save time at the end for any questions and get to those later. Ann? So I have no doubt that everybody that's listening today would agree that even under normal circumstances, especially in light industrial and manufacturing sectors, have issues hiring. Now especially, our partners are sharing some very basic and common themes that are obstacles to hiring in the current environment where 36 million people are unemployed nationwide. So how are people getting furloughed employees, laid off employees, and new candidates back to work? There are no doubt common challenges that we hear and we've heard and continue to hear from our client partners. What we're hearing in the marketplace is that there are health and safety fears, again, both in large and small organizations. People generally are not educated on company safety precautions, especially as it relates to new hires. There is some very large spread confusion as it relates to unemployment benefits and the federal pandemic unemployment compensation programs that are causing more people than ever to not be working. People are generally not up to date or well informed on the requirements for either of those programs, and more importantly, the end dates that are approaching very soon. As a matter of fact, July 31st, which is coming. You know, the impact is widespread. I had the opportunity to speak with a local manufacturer a couple weeks ago who was looking at bringing in furloughed employees and also using employee referrals to bring new candidates in. And the experience that she shared was unbelievably unpleasant because from incumbent employees, those new people coming in were basically seen as a threat, you know, both to their jobs and then to the safety of their organization coming in off the street. So without a doubt, has definitely been a challenge. What's the impact of these challenges? First and foremost, your average cost per hire is without a doubt going to increase. Just because we have a flooded candidate market, hiring quickly from an unemployed candidate pool is not necessarily a good thing. And certainly there's loss of production and then increases of overtime, which cause budgeting issues. I mean, no doubt forecasting under normal circumstances is difficult already, but now forecasting, you know, what your business is going to look like in the future has certainly become increasingly difficult. Next slide, Ann. So most organizations need to gain an understanding why they're not being successful in hiring in a flooded candidate market and how to overcome those challenges. What companies are doing successfully and have shared with us is in order to retain furloughed and rehire laid off employees, they're having to go through extraordinary measures. It is no longer just a phone call. So the first step in that process generally has been a very official offer letter that has included an explanation of their safety protocols that are being enacted to protect their employees, a link to their company website with CDC educational information is extremely valuable. Social media can be certainly a good thing and definitely a bad thing, as so many people get misinformation. However, in this case, partners that are using social media as part of their website to promote the safety procedures that they have in place have been quite successful. In doing that, it is definitely helped to provide real-time information that is very accessible and received quickly. In addition to the offer letter, it's generally followed up with a live call. This makes the opportunity real and tangible to both returning candidates that have been laid off or furloughed. In that phone call, our partners are taking the opportunity to offer the job and explain the timeline of the offer and why it exists. Why it exists is because there's a need to set expectations, ensure that next steps are mutually understood, and then also, more importantly, have the opportunity to answer questions and set aside any fears. In that call, many are choosing to recognize and educate how some of the unemployment programs work and federal aid as well. It is an opportunity for our employer partners to establish a time frame with that July 31st end date. In all of us needing to acknowledge the fact that more people that are in the general labor pool, and certainly for companies that employ a large general labor pool that are on the lower end of the pay scale, are currently making more money receiving aid than they would be at work. However, most importantly, it's a great opportunity at that time to let those people know that this money will absolutely come to an end. So that's extremely valuable and a great opportunity in reselling the job. Ann? So to follow that, what happens when you've hired back your furloughed employees and brought back returning folks, and it's just not enough? Your head count is not enough to meet your needs and maintain a successful production schedule. Some of the best hiring practices that are available in Northeast Ohio now have been shared with us, as more and more locations across the country and here in North Ohio need to begin to think out of the box. So everybody, of course, uses the traditional job aids. Those have absolutely needed to be changed and updated. Whether the job aids that are online or through social media or your own company's internal website, those traditional methods are very valuable, but now they need to be changed to become relevant to today's day and time. Most should include hiring immediately or hiring now tagline. Hiring during COVID has also been used over and over, and I've seen that quite commonly. There's also an inclusion of your company COVID-19 safety precautions included within the job ad, and then a link to your website. It absolutely allows potential candidates to know that this is a real and immediate need. In addition to the way companies are posting jobs, the interview process has changed dramatically. Certainly, as we see today, there are many online platforms that companies are leveraging when entrance is limited into their organization. Many of them are easily accessible, whether it's Zoom, Skype, a GoToMeeting. Most people either have access to either a laptop or, as we found many times, at least a mobile phone to leverage one of these online platforms. It has been helpful, which we've certainly heard from our associates across the country, in limiting travel time, especially for those people that leverage the public transportation or now are experiencing limited childcare. Both the onboarding process as well as the application process have largely moved to an electronic rather than paper process. I stress that for companies that have been successful, it needs to be a very effective, easy, and informative process, as well as mobile friendly, I might add. The interview process should also remain updated and quite thorough. Obviously, there's a need to limit steps, but in choosing the best candidates that are highly retainable as well, several things still need to take place, but in a relatively short amount of time. So with that, both verbal and in written format, there should be an explanation of your organization's commitment to COVID-19 safety for all of your employees. In addition, a review on any safety elements that are being put into place. That can include sanitation processes and procedures, company social distancing policies, PPE requirements, all should be part of that review. In addition, we're hearing more and more that behavioral assessments are becoming quite valuable. You really are able in these assessments to specifically gauge candidates' likelihood to be safe and engaged in the workplace. These assessments are readily available online. They're very quick and easy to give, but also provide a lot of valuable information. In that interview process, again, there's an excellent opportunity to sell a long-term career path. These are not short-term opportunities, so it's a great time to make a career path visible and show that next steps are readily available as well as attainable. Next slide. So through regular surveys, our associates have shared some common themes. They need to see what is being done day to day on their behalf in order for them to remain safe in the workspace. So some common things that have been shared with us on a regular basis from our associates, again, here in Cleveland, as well as all over the country, really are quite common. So whether it's a lack of PPE enforcement policies due to a failure of, a failure to disinfect high touch areas, whether it's because there's a low supply or these items are not readily available, that certainly causes an issue. Whether it's pre-hire, post-hire, or on a continuing basis, there's in general a perception that there's a lack of COVID-19 safety training, not having either an experienced healthcare professional or a designated internal staff member to monitor entrance into the facility, manage any kind of documentation, or to provide ongoing support for both frontline labor and supervisors is an issue. We hear over and over that lack of doing this gives a feeling that there's not an investment in the organization. In addition, there's so much information out there. So in really needing to control and inform the flow of information, there has been, in general, a lack of safety updates on companies' websites and intranet sites. Why do we know that? Again, this is what we're hearing. These are things that happen as a result of a lack of these things. It causes fear in an uncertain time. And we're getting this information again through employee feedback. Partners that are doing these surveys as well have had access to the very same feedback, and in turn have been able to manage and respond appropriately and in a very timely manner. And again, it's absolutely valuable. Ann? So with regards to best practices, I want to share some of the things that our partners have been proactively doing over the past weeks and months. So to begin, many companies we've heard have hired an actual healthcare professional to be their frontline support. Several benefits to doing so. One, it's much more cost effective than you would think. We listed some just kind of what we're hearing as per hour costs for both a medical assistant or an emergency room tech. It does not have to be an RN or an LPN, but there are different options. Again, it provides a sense of support and gives a credible person that's kind of your front and center. It doesn't have to be a healthcare professional, but it certainly does provide credibility. In addition to providing an assessment person or a frontline support, COVID-19 safety orientations are being done all over the country. Those obviously should be based on CDC guidelines and best practices with regards to signage, daily hygiene, mask protocol, as well as social distancing. In those orientations, some bullet point and important items to include would be, again, that orientation being performed by a healthcare professional or a single dedicated source within your organization. A virtual pre-hire orientation could certainly be used where limited entrance of non-staff is in place in your building. As I mentioned previously, Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeetings are all great platforms. Those could, again, be performed by an in-house person or an outsourced healthcare professional. Existing employee orientation is valuable as well. Making that available and keeping it update on your company intranet or extranet is a great way to do that and, again, manage the flow of information. Testing and sign off by incoming as well as your existing workforce reduces the chances of any later issues and ensures that you have the documentation needed in place to protect your organization. That process, if managed by a healthcare professional, we've heard over and over again, has allowed human resources folks to be freed up to do the job that they're actually, there to do. Obviously in worst case scenarios, the situation that, each person and each company fears the worst is what if somebody has COVID or has been exposed to a COVID, COVID-like symptoms. Having that possibility as part of orientation is extremely important as well. So providing education on what the call protocol or call offline process should look like if COVID symptoms occur or any other kind of relevant symptoms have happened, or if there's been exposure. This does ensure a safe return also, or in that should include what your return to work policy is, because again, we've also heard that, and many of our clients have shared with us that they have people off of work and they've continued to remain off of work for weeks at a time, and they have no idea when it's all right to say it's okay to come back. So providing that as part of that orientation is very helpful as well. Anne? So in addition to what I already mentioned, many companies are already doing some proactive measures that are quite simple to do. Again, they're kind of upfront items that are performed daily, so everything is kind of top of mind on a regular basis. Those would certainly include daily health assessments that are, can ensure that any ongoing compliance is met and a safe workplace is continuously made available. In those daily assessments, a temperature scan obviously is performed. Again, that can be performed by an internal resource, the associate, or a healthcare professional. A daily healthcare should obviously include some type of sign-off sheet before entrance into the workplace. Again, that could be a paper sheet, it could be electronic, it could be a verbal process. Whatever has worked best is what we're hearing that people are doing, or whatever fits best into your organization structure is perfectly fine. But in that assessment, again, confirmation that PPE is being worn both at your workspaces and in high traffic areas as well. And again, these policies are generally determined by your company's leadership. Another best practice that we've seen over and over again that's been invaluable would be weekly huddles between dedicated healthcare professionals and their supervisors. It's a great opportunity to provide updates, share new policies and questions. Again, sharing accurate information in real time, controlling the flow of the information and updates is obviously quite important, but also giving the opportunity for your team members to ask questions and have them answered certainly shows your company's investments. All of these measures we've heard over and over again are simple enough measures to keep in place that provide protection for both the employees and you as the employer as well. We included a link to for the CDC that has an option to print 40 different signs that can again be placed in high traffic areas. Front and center is always the place to be, but if you wanted to click on that link, there's several different options that can be easily printed and posted anywhere in your location. So we can all most certainly agree that many of these items are very simple precautions that we can take on a daily basis. It's a visual reminder and that measures are proactively being taken. Many of these best practices that we've seen put in place over and over again are low cost but high impact items that again serve to give comfort. They are high impact, but again, it's that thought during the day that there's a comfort in the workplace. So in that, providing access to items that are perhaps difficult to get outside of the home, like hand sanitizer and wipes, that are placed strategically at your entrance, any workspace or break areas is quite helpful. PPE, without a doubt, a hot topic, and you know, an item that's been hard to come by over the past weeks, but obviously so important to protect people in the workplace, whether it's a face mask or a face shield. Many of our partners have made those readily available. They can certainly be cloth masks or disposable. We heard from one of our partners at the very start of the pandemic some really helpful information as they were experiencing difficulty getting PPE in a timely manner for their associates. So what they were able to do and share in a kind of a quick way was generally kind of homemade options or alternative options for face masks that were safe. So they were, again, kind of controlling that flow of information and providing people with options when, there's been so many questions of what may or may not work. If you are able to come across an excellent supplier, it's certainly recommended that you would have multiple supplier relationships. Again, having those relationships managed by one internal resource, we've heard again and again, has been invaluable. Developing a relationship with your suppliers and then in turn having them reach out to you proactively to inform you on availability has been quite important, especially now, since everyone recognizes that people are returning to work, sooner rather than later. And without a doubt, as the summer progresses and kids are beginning to go back to school, having that supplier relationship that's going to keep you informed in availability is certainly helpful. In addition, of course, to helping provide PPE, we've also heard some great stories shared about information that's being given to employees on how to keep masks clean and sanitary as well. So, great best practices in order to keep people safe. And so to switch gears, now that your workforce is in place, what are some proactive rather than reactive measures to keep them highly retained and manage attrition and to continue to educate in the workforce? Some great retention tools. Again, it's certainly one that we use for our associates all over the place, and much of the information that we've received has come through these surveys. And in turn, so many of our client partners are leveraging them as well. But surveys given both to new employees as well as existing employees, it's important to mention that these surveys have been anonymous. It absolutely allows people to share more information freely. New employee surveys are given at different time frames, or can certainly be given at different time frames. The initial 10-day anonymous survey really focuses in general on onboarding and any safety impressions. It's been very valuable. In addition, a 30-day follow-up survey that now shifts focus to training and safety can be given. There are various ways to complete these surveys that are pretty quick and easy to do. SurveyMonkey and intranet surveys have both been shared with us as great options. They're quick and quite simple to execute. The benefits of doing new hire surveys, again, we hear over and over, is that especially in a time where there's a lot of confusion and people feel like they don't have a voice, it allows people to feel recognized, give feedback in a quite unprecedented time. And also as an organization, it helps you react to any negative impressions as well as to better understand your candidate pool. With that, there's certainly the opportunity to make any kind of appropriate adjustments as they are needed. In addition to incoming associate employees, the existing workforce should also have access to surveys. These can absolutely happen every 90 days or whatever time frame you determine. We keep hearing over and over that 30 days is a good time frame. It allows for veteran associates to have an input on safety and then in turn feel valued as kind of the incumbent workforce. Survey results that are gathered really should be published to management and frontline supervisors to share any type of information. In sharing that information, obviously, it allows teams to address common issues before turnover happens, and again, to remain proactive rather than reactive. As I'm sure everyone would agree, any type of interviews largely are not helpful because it's tainted information for the most part. And then, of course, the situation that we would all fear the most is that what happens in the case that one of your workforce would happen to contract COVID. You know, certainly there's the thought that any kind of panic that would spread that would affect your workforce or their safety and comfort in the workplace needs to be managed. So with that, a level of transparency of COVID cases within companies has been absolutely necessary. It allows for both the sharing of protective measures that are being taken, any appropriate changes or return to work protocols to be made known, but in addition should be put in place to maintain the privacy of any associate that may be affected. With that, also communication with employees on what's being done to continue to keep your facility sanitized and protected is important. In doing so, our clients have been able to build trust while keeping their workforce safe as well as effective in the process. Anne? So obviously, in continuing to educate during these unprecedented times, there are some additional proactive measures to ensure employee retention. In doing so, there are no doubt going to be challenges. Some of those challenges certainly would include that most employees and frontline supervisors, as we all tend to, get their education and information from social media, supervisors, the rumor mill, or their peers. This happens, unfortunately, rather than gathering information from reliable resources like the CDC or your local government website. In that case, oftentimes employees don't know where to go for the most up-to-date information, or they don't have access to healthcare leaders and professionals. If that's happened and they're not educated and up to date on a regular basis, people tend to get an out of sight, out of mind mentality, especially as we move forward and things begin to open up. So with that, another potential issue that we're hearing about from our partners is employees that are showing up to work due to fear, that are sick due to fear of losing their job or their paycheck. With those challenges, there's also, in addition, hiring back issues that are potential challenges as well. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the candidate perception that unemployment and federal benefits are just going to last forever. Most people do not understand that these benefits are going to end soon. We're hearing over and over again that now more than ever, our partners are sharing that they need to continue to sell opportunities as both long-term and provide a visual career path with easily attainable steps to progression. Their job will be there after the July 31st date, and that needs to be kind of ensured over and over again. So we ensure that everyone is looking at the big picture, because in this day and time, I think most people are generally scared to look at the big picture. So we need to understand and address that that is a challenge that employers will continue to face. So with that said, and challenges being made known, how are companies educating on best practices? Our partners are continuously needing to adapt and educate. I mentioned earlier a case where I had the opportunity to have information shared with me regarding bringing back new hires. In turn, because what one of our other partners here in Northeast Ohio shared with us, I was able to kind of give some ideas what different companies are doing with regards to best practices in a variety of different formats, whether it's email or their company website, that provide continuous education and information to their workforce. So again, as I mentioned, that could happen via the company website with a link to CDC's and your safety policies. This should be updated weekly. Measures that are taken to ensure safety need to be posted in visible areas. Again, we don't want to allow for the out of sight, out of mind mentality, and that should be updated. Continue ensuring that that information continues to come from a reliable resource obviously shows that you're invested as an employer in your website and the information that you're providing is credible. The CDC website is a great place to go for these updates. The information that I was able to share was actually a collection of emails that go out on a weekly basis to employees. In those emails, there were various reminders and updates that are quite helpful. So it was a good guideline for another organization to modify and make their own. In addition to any kind of written communication and email updates, web updates, signage posted in high areas, certainly again important. Keeping safety top of mind and in front of everyone's eyes on a regular basis is, certainly paramount right now. So with that said, and despite all the best practices that we've shared, all employers certainly understand in this day and time that there's a constant need to stay abreast of any kind of legal or legal issues or workers' comp risks. There are lawsuits happening today. They're happening quicker than we'd like to think they are. But again, we've provided some resources that are available and informative. It's scary, but also helpful to understand that over 800 lawsuits have been in progress since 5/4 over COVID-19 for a variety of different reasons, including wrongful death suits. The links below give some examples of the types of cases that are out there. Again, it's valuable information that can be shared within your organization and that is readily available. The workers' comp claims unfortunately are coming. So the link that we shared also is kind of about what could happen if, and there are considerations in that in the information of kind of what to be aware of. The website provides kind of a quite simple FAQ format, and it's pretty quick to go through, but informative as well. Ann? So obviously, to conclude, I would certainly like to stress that none of this information has come to us from a single source. It's really a compilation of valuable information sharing across multiple client partners and our associates as well. We can all certainly understand that we all learn as we go, and we need to continue to adapt and inform. Most importantly, in doing so, in keeping our businesses open, supporting each other as manufacturers, and then keeping our workforce in place and safe. So just to summarize, some of the best practices that we've seen to help moderate company risk post-shutdown would be kind of very thorough, changed and modern rehiring and hiring practices. Again, orientation for new and existing employees, continual education for your frontline workers, your supervisor teams, as well as managers, feedback provided through employee surveys. Again, that's both for new hires and existing employees. Daily health assessments performed by a healthcare professional, and that information in turn being documented internally. Making available PPE that's highly available and then enforced in high traffic areas, hand sanitizer in those areas as well, over signage in any traffic area, and then certainly in worst case scenarios, a COVID-19 reaction plan that's pre-thought out and in place to sanitize and then identify other employees at risk, and also back to work procedures with that as well. In addition, in-house or outsourced legal counsel to give continual weekly updates to senior management in order to adapt when needed in worst case scenarios, but also to provide information as well. So at this time, I want to pause for any questions. I know, we may have some ones that have been typed in also. So Tim, I'm sure will join me in helping answer those questions if there are any.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I like what you said about surveys to get a feel for what your employees are feeling. Hadn't been something that I had thought about, but what types of questions are you or any of your clients asking that are COVID oriented? I'm worried about putting something in that might be a little too personal, because we're a smaller company, so it's almost impossible to make things anonymous. So what types of questions would you kind of recommend there?
Tim, did you want to jump in, or you want me to?
Yeah, I can jump in. The questions that we're seeing our clients ask that they're getting really good feedback are really general open-ended questions. They're not specific. They're questions in relation to, how do you feel our company is doing in reference to, whether it be enough cleaning product, sanitation, education. So they're really open-ended questions that are there, and we can share specifics, with you because we have them. But they're really open-ended questions. They're not getting into very specific. They're not very specific questions in where you need to worry about, hey, am I crossing the line, and asking them a question they feel uncomfortable about, because it's really about education. Do they feel they're educated? Do they feel safe in the work environment based on the current? What would they suggest could be an improvement, make them feel more comfortable and safe? So those type of questions are the ones being asked. But Renee or myself can share some specifics. We don't mind sharing what we have, because in an unusual time we're in today, it's in everybody's best interest to share information and what's working and what's not. So feel free to to email Renee or myself, and we can share and give you specific examples. They're so different. Some companies did get very specific, and some were very general. And the ones that were general, they received a lot more feedback, more open-ended questions. Hopefully that answered your question.
I know some ways that that have been shared with us that kind of help ensure anonymity would be to, clients putting, rather than placing a phone call or a face-to-face survey, obviously that's not going to be the case, but having survey documents in the break room and have people know that they're there and made available at the end of the shift so they can fill out those documents. Again, it's a quick, maybe 5-10 question survey that goes into an envelope that then is shared with a supervisor, that results are compiled and shared with the team. That's a great way to do it. That's been successful, and again, simple enough to do. The Survey Monkey kind of method is easy as well. I think some people check their email more often than others. So to me, I've heard over and over that just putting surveys out in the break room and asking people to fill them out, but then also in asking for those surveys to be completed, I have heard over and over that it's helpful to let people know that these surveys are for your benefit. The information that's gathered is here to make your job better, and in this case, certainly to ensure that you feel safe in the workplace. If that's helpful also.
Yep, thanks.
So if there's no other questions, certainly, again, a huge thank you to Manufacturing Works for inviting us to share the information with you all today. I hope that it was absolutely helpful. If you have any additional questions or want to learn any more specifics, feel free to call or email Tim or myself. If you have also information that you want to share, or down the road you're facing a specific challenge that you'd like some input or to bounce off of us, or hear what other people might have done, other companies might have done in that situation, feel free to contact us as well. Both of our numbers and email addresses are on the screen below.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us on the call today. And thanks again to Renee and to Tim of Horizons HR Services for their excellent presentation. It was really, really thorough and very great information. We do
Thanks for
encourage
having
all
us.
of you. Oh, absolutely. We encourage all of you to share with us your thoughts and topics that you'd like to see covered on future calls, and we'll do our best to address those for you. And please stay tuned to your email as we announce our next call. And if there's other manufacturers in your network that you think would benefit from this information, feel free to share this with them or let us know, and we'd be happy to reach out to them. As I mentioned earlier, this call has been recorded, and an archived version will be available on our YouTube channel and in the COVID-19 resources section of our website. So thanks again, be safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye, everyone.